Welcome to All Sorts Podcast, everyone. We're diving deep today, folks, into the Queen of Sheba. You might remember her from, Hebrew school, but we're going way deeper than just the basics. I've got some amazing sources here, Midrash, Aggadah, really shedding some light on this mysterious figure.
Yeah, these Jewish commentaries are amazing. They really give us a whole new perspective on the story. It's like they take this historical figure and turn her into this complex, intelligent woman who, challenges the norms.
Okay, so let's start with what we know from the Bible. What does the Book of Kings actually tell us about her?
Well, the account in Kings, and the parallel one in Chronicles, really, it focuses mainly on her visit to King Solomon, right? Her gifts, her admiration for his wisdom, the whole grand meeting, But it leaves out so much. Like, where did she even come from? What made her travel all that way? And what was their relationship really like?
Well, it's like a movie trailer. That leaves you wanting more. That's where the Midrash and Aggadah come in, I guess.
Exactly. They fill in those gaps. For instance, they talk about how she tested Solomon with riddles to really challenge his wisdom, on all sorts of topics like nature, human behavior.
Wait, riddles? Never heard this before. What kind of riddles?
Oh, well, one famous one is about the female birth cycle. She describes the different stages, menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, nursing, without actually saying what they are. And she challenges Solomon to figure it out.
Wow. Testing him on women's biology. That's pretty bold, especially for back then.
Oh, absolutely. It shows she's not just some admirer. She's an intellectual equal, willing to challenge him on his own turf. And the fact he answers correctly, it shows he doesn't just have general knowledge. He understands what you might call women's wisdom, the kind of knowledge that's passed down among women.
Right. So she's not just testing his intelligence. She's pushing back against those gender roles, too. It's like she's saying, hey, don't underestimate me. I bring something different to the table.
Exactly. And this theme of challenging conventions, it keeps coming up.
I'm starting to see why people are so fascinated by her. There's so much more to her story than what you first see.
Oh, definitely. The more we dig into these texts, the more we realize she's not just some side character in Solomon's story. She's powerful in her own right.
Definitely not what I learned in Hebrew school. And I have a feeling there's more to come, right?
Oh, yeah, we're just getting started. And we're back digging deeper into the Queen of Sheba, all those fascinating details you probably didn't hear about in Hebrew school.
Yeah, it's amazing how the Midrash and Aggadah, they take these Bible stories and add so much depth to them.
It's really remarkable. Like, you mentioned how she tested Solomon with riddles, but it wasn't just that one about, the female body. The Midrash describes a whole bunch of tests, not just like brain teasers, but to really see how wise he was about human nature, social customs, even the natural world.
Can you give me an example? I'm really curious about these riddles now.
Sure, there's one where she shows him two groups of people dressed exactly alike, and she asks him to tell who are the men and who are the women without talking to them or touching them.
Wow, that sounds impossible. How could he tell just by looking?
Well, according to the Midrash, Solomon had nuts and ears of corn scattered on the ground. The men, being less shy, they quickly gathered them up and hid them under their clothes. But the women, more concerned about modesty, they used their outer garments to carry them. So there is this subtle difference in how they acted.
That's clever. It shows he understood those unspoken rules about how men and women behave, in public.
Right. True wisdom isn't just book smarts. It's about understanding people, social dynamics, those little hints that tell you what's really going on.
So these riddles weren't just to stump Solomon. They were to see just how deep his wisdom went.
Exactly. And it also shows that the queen, she was smart enough to come up with these tests. She wasn't just watching. She was an active part of this whole intellectual battle. It says a lot about her own intelligence.
Yeah, this is changing how I see her. She's not just a queen with fancy gifts. She's coming in as an equal, ready to challenge the wisest man alive.
And this boldness, this challenging of norms, it's not just with Solomon. Midrash even suggests that she converted to Judaism after seeing his wisdom and the miracles of God.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So she wasn't just impressed by his mind. She was drawn to his faith, too.
That's how it's presented. And it adds another layer to her story, right? It shows she was open-minded, willing to try new things, kind of like other converts in the Bible. Jethro, Rahab. It highlights how universal Jewish wisdom and faith can be.
It's fascinating how this seemingly simple encounter becomes a story about faith, curiosity, breaking down barriers.
That's the power of Midrash and Aggadah. They make us look deeper. to see those hidden meanings, those motivations.
I'm really curious about this conversion. Do the commentaries give any details, like what made her decide to do it? Was it a sudden thing or a gradual process?
Well, they don't go into specifics, but they do highlight the impact of seeing Solomon's wisdom and the magnificence of his court. Imagine witnessing divine wisdom firsthand, seeing a nation thriving under God's favor. It must have been a powerful experience.
Yeah, that would make anyone think twice about their own beliefs.
Exactly. It shows how open she was to questioning her own assumptions, exploring new paths. It's something that still resonates today in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information and having to reevaluate what we think is true.
It's like she embodies a certain humility, a willingness to admit there might be other ways of seeing things.
Precisely. And that's a valuable lesson for all of us.
This has been so insightful. We're really getting to know her on a deeper level.
Me too. And there's still so much more to explore.
And we're back for our final look into the Queen of Sheba. It's incredible how much richer her story is than just what's in the Bible.
Yeah, the Midrash and Aggadah really changed things, huh? She goes from kind of flat to this really complex and fascinating person.
I'm especially intrigued by this conversion to Judaism thing. What do you think that means, in the bigger picture of how these stories were told and passed down?
That's a great point. On one hand, it does make Solomon's wisdom seem even greater and shows how attractive Judaism was to outsiders. Fits with that whole idea of God's chosen people and monotheism spreading.
Right, so it's like proof that even powerful rulers recognize the truth of Judaism.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is how that meaning might change depending on who's telling the story, right? And when they're telling it. Like in later Jewish traditions, the queen's conversion, it could be seen as evidence of how strong Jewish faith was, even during exile, overcoming obstacles.
It's a story of survival almost.
Exactly. And for those who see her as a symbol of female leadership, intellectual curiosity, the conversion adds to that defying of norms. She's not just questioning Solomon, she's choosing a new faith, maybe a risky one back then.
Right, not afraid to go her own way at all.
Not at all. It reminds us these ancient stories, they can have so many meanings. They get reinterpreted over time to match the values of different groups.
It's amazing how one detail, like her converting, can be so symbolic, have so many different takes on it.
It really shows the power of stories
Yeah.
and how they shape how we see history, culture, even ourselves.
Okay, so we've looked at the Bible, the Midrash, the Aggadah, uncovered stuff I never knew, even from Hebrew school. What's the big takeaway here for our listeners? What should they remember about the Queen of Sheba?
I think the main thing is she was way more than just someone who visited Solomon. She was powerful, smart, incredibly curious, not afraid to challenge things, debate the wisest man alive, and maybe even switch to a whole new religion.
She's a great example that even people who seem like minor characters can actually be these complex, influential figures.
For sure. Her story tells us to look deeper, question what we think we know, and recognize all the amazing women throughout history who broke the mold, made their mark on the world.
This has been a fascinating journey. It's incredible what we can learn from these ancient texts.
I agree. I hope it inspires everyone to keep exploring. There's always more to find out about the Queen of Sheba and so many other figures.
And speaking of exploring, we hope you'll join us on more adventures here at the All Swords Podcast. Make sure to like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our deep dives.
And follow us on X, Instagram, and Threads too for even more insights and behind-the-scenes stuff.
We're always looking for new topics, so if you have any ideas, sources you want us to look at, let us know.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep those All Sorts podcast vibes going. Let these ancient stories push you to learn, challenge yourselves, and embrace how rich human history is.
That's it for today, everyone.